ever said yes when every part of your body was screaming no? This episode is for you because after heartbreak, we tend to overgive, maybe to prove that we're strong, to keep the peace, maybe to avoid being too much. And we show up for everyone else while secretly falling apart. And this is normal that we're falling apart after a heartbreak. But here's what I've learned: saying no isn't rejection, it's actually self respect. It's how you stop abandoning yourself and start rebuilding your power. Okay. So today I'm diving deep into the art of saying no. You learn boundaries and basically why boundaries are a healing pool. They're so important in your healing process, and how to know when you're being crossed, and three simple ways, because we always have exercises in the podcast to protect your peace right now, to start doing that right now, because by the end of this episode you're going to feel lighter, stronger, and ready to walk through life saying yes, but only to what truly serves you. So welcome to another episode of From Breakup to Badass. My name is Yanira Puy. I'm your speaker, wellness coach, and your guide through the messy, beautiful process of rebuilding your life after heartbreak. And if you haven't done so yet, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode that helps you grow, heal, and step into your next chapter with confidence. So let's start, talking about why saying no sometimes it feels so hard. Because let's be real, for many of us, saying no feels like a crime. It has happened to me. It has happened to me for my whole life. And I have been getting better of prioritizing myself in the last maybe 2 or 3 years, which has been great because it has been a learning experience. And sometimes, yes, it feels like a crime. And I felt horrible by saying no. But at the end, every time I say yes to another person, I'm saying no to myself. So in this case, when you learn how to say no, you're saying yes to yourself. And I think, why do we think sometimes that it's a crime to say no? I guess we worry that we'll disappoint someone, maybe lose love or seem unkind, right? That's what's had happened to me. If I say no to a friend, it's like, oh my God, like that person is gonna think that I don't love them anymore or I'm not a nice person. But this people pleasing reflex doesn't come from generosity. It comes from fear of abandonment, for fear of being rejected, for fear of being misunderstood, fear that if we stop, we'll stop mattering. And I think that's what happened to me. Like every time that I said yes, it was like, okay, if I don't say yes, they're not going to love me anymore. They're not going to be in my life anymore. So after a breakup, the topic that we're talking today, that fear gets even louder, because when you have lost someone that you love, part of you wants to hold to everyone else, right? So you overextend. Maybe it's the in-laws, maybe it's their friends, whoever they are. So you start extend, you overcommit, you overgive. But here's the truth: that you cannot heal if your energy is leaking everywhere. This is an important moment for you, because this moment you need you more than ever. Wow, that's beautiful. You need you more than ever. And you're the person who has to be there for you. And I'm not sure if you have heard Brené Brown. She talks about shame. She talks about vulnerability. She's a psychologist. She has books. She has a very good TED Talk. I do recommend that you listen to her, but she said something about boundaries. Like daring to set boundaries is about having the courage to love ourselves, even when we risk disappointing others, even when we risk that other people are not going to love us, because that's the belief that we have in our mind. So boundaries are not a selfish act, okay? They are sacred. They're the bridge between who you were when you overgave and who you're becoming, the woman who chooses herself day by day, over and over. So if you have been the fixer, the listener, the always available one, I want you to pause and ask yourself, and this is for me too, because I've already been the overgiver. When was the last time I said yes out of guilt, not love? Okay, think about it. When was the last time that I said yes out of guilt, not love? Or when was the last time that I said no and didn't explain it? Has that happened to you? I mean, I believe this episode is for everyone. All the over pleases out there, please say yes. When was the last time that you say no and didn't explain it? I felt for so long, and I think I might still do it. Like I needed to explain over and over why I couldn't do it, right? I'm working on it. I'm still working on it. I have been getting better and better, and I have learned a lot about it from my family and my friends because they do boundaries better than I did in the past. So what's the science behind the boundaries? Let's talk about the biology of boundaries, because this is an emotion, it is actually physical, and I have talked about this part again and again in different episodes, because your brain and body thrive on safety. This is why sometimes your brain tells you not to do things when they feel risky, right? Let's say like opening a new business, going out on a date. Your brain is always going to thrive on safety. The brain doesn't want you to do things that are gonna put you on risk, right? So that's why it's easy sometimes to say yes instead of saying no. And every time that you say yes, when you mean no, your nervous system is going to detect danger. Okay. So studies from Frontier in Psychology in 2020, they show that people who establish boundaries, and this is very important, they're 30% less chronic. They have 30% less chronic stress. They have fewer burned out symptoms. And think about it just for a little while. When we say yes, even when we want to say no, I mean, our brain and our feelings are not going to be matched. So we stress even more, because then we're going to ask, why did I say yes? Why did I have to go to this party? Why am I here when I wanted to stay home? That's what's important. And when you understand that, remember that the reason that you're here and the reason that you're listening to this is because you're looking for answers. It's because, maybe the topic it's something that you were thinking about. And if you're here for a reason. So saying no literally regulates your stress hormones, lowering the cortisol, which is the hormone of stress, and restoring the balance to your nervous system, something that is called osmosis, right? So why? Because no, it's going to create space. Because space is going to create maybe, the chance to breathe, the chance to rest, the chance to process, and the chance or the space to heal. You're in a healing process right now. So you are the most important person right now in your life. So when you say no, you're telling your body, I am safe now. I don't have to please to survive. So that's the beginning of emotional freedom. Every time that I work with clients, it's also good to, it's not only learning about the concept, it's about understanding what's out there, the tools that I can use. There's so many tools. I have a business partner in my other podcast, which is in Spanish, and we always talk, behind camera, that I mean, we have problems like everybody else, and we are scared sometimes. We have fears, but we have tools that we have learned in this process, being wellness coaches and all of the studies that we have done. And sometimes you say, like, how do people do without tools? Like, we could be in a messy situation, but I mean, we're hanging out there because we do have the tools. So the idea of this podcast is also to give you the tools that you can for you to do that at home. So one of the things that you could do, it's always good to have things on paper. When you see them on paper, when you write it down, when you do the exercise, that's going to help your brain. And I'm going to pause right here, but I'm going to give you an example. If I tell you 2 plus 2, you're going to say 4. You don't need a paper. But if I tell you 1,355 plus 2 million or 10,900,000, like, if I give you all these numbers, it's going to be harder. But if you put it in paper, most likely you're going to resolve the equation. It's the same thing with your brain. It's the same thing with your feelings. When you put it in writing, it's easier to see it. It's easier to look for the answer. So one of the things that you can do is take out a journal and draw a line in the middle. So in one column, you can put what drains me, what takes my energy. And the other one is what restores me, what gives me energy. Now, circle one of the things, and you can pause this, but when you come back, circle one of the items of the column of it drains me, okay? And this week, say no to it. Let's say it's my sister. She always wants me to take care of her baby. Just say no, because, I mean, if it drains you, of course, just say no and see how it feels, and that thing that you circle around, it could be a person, it could be a habit, it could be a task, or even it could be a thought. Okay. So remember, every time that you say no to something that drains you, you say yes to healing. You say yes to something that gives you energy. And for me, in the column of giving me energy, I have exercising, walking, meditating, recording a podcast. This gives me energy. And I'm working on the things that don't give me energy. And it's not like people drain me, but sometimes the things that I do with people drain me. So it's better to understand. One of the other things that you could say, I love the power of affirmations or talking to myself. I talk to myself all the time. If you ask my friends how do I heal sometimes for things, is that I talk to the pain. Like if it's physical pain, I talk to the pain. It's like, okay, I know pain, you're here for a reason, but as soon as you can, just let's leave. You're here for a reason, maybe something that I have to learn, but as soon as you can, please get out of my life. And usually that works. I mean, it's a whole process, but if you stand up in the mirror, if you want to say no to something, just, say back to yourself, like, no is not rejection, it's self-respect. Every time I say no to somebody else, I say yes to myself. And it might sound silly, but your subconscious needs to hear your truth over and over, because most likely you have spent years training yourself to overextend. Now is the time to retrain your nervous system to rest, to feel happy. And I promise, the more that you practice saying no, the calmer your body will feel and the better you're going to feel. And again, people are going to understand because they have boundaries too. If, that thing that you circle around, it's about a person. So ask yourself, think about these questions. Where have I been saying yes when my soul meant no? And I have talked to you about this quote, like the quality of your life is the quality of the questions that you ask yourself. So the more that you ask yourself, the more clearly you're going to see live. So one of the other questions could be, why or what am I afraid that will happen if I stop overgiving? For me, it was that I thought people were going to reject me if I didn't do whatever they wanted me to do. Like they were not going to love me anymore. And you know what happened? People are respecting me more just because I put boundaries. So, isn't that beautiful? And one other question could be, what would peace look like if I stop explaining my no? And this is something important. I mean, the first step is saying no. If you want to explain, go ahead and do it. The second thing is just say no. No, I can't. That's it. You don't have to say anything. I don't know. I have a friend, and she told me to go to museum. No, it's not a museum. It's a they're gonna go to some place and they're gonna see the place. And I've been there twice, and I think it's boring, and that's the truth. And I told her, no. I mean, I did explain, but I say, no, I don't want to do it. And she texted me back, it would be great if you're here. But I mean, the reality is that I think it's boring and I don't want to do it because that time I could be doing something that is not boring for me, that it doesn't drain me, that it gives me energy. And this is something that I tell all my clients. Boundaries don't push people away. And I learned it, I'm not going to say the hard way, but I learned it and people didn't push me away. They respect me more. So boundaries don't push people away. They actually teach them how to love you better. Beautiful, right? Amazing. So the people who truly belong in your next chapter will respect your limits. And those who don't, maybe they're not aligned with you anymore, with your peace, with whatever it is. So let's reframe this together. No, it's not a negative, it's neutral, it's powerful, okay? It's how you filter out the chaos, the distraction, and the noise, okay? And it's how you rebuild your confidence as well. So when women, according to studies, when women practice assertiveness, and this is more difficult for women than for men, but when women practice assertiveness and emotional boundaries in personal relationships are twice as likely to report fulfillment and self-worth as after a breakup. So think about it. So when you say no, you're not losing the connection. You are actually creating alignment because every no opens a door for a bigger yes. Okay? The yes to yourself, to your peace, to your next purpose, to your healing. And, maybe you have spent much of your life trying to be everything for everyone. I've talked about this. We kind of lose ourselves in a relationship. Now it's the time to be everything for you. Your peace is sacred. Your time is gold. And your no, that's your power word for now. So remember, boundaries aren't about closing doors. They're about choosing who gets to come through. And this is you. So if this episode reminded you about the power of boundaries, share it with someone that maybe needs to understand or maybe needs a reminder on how to say no. And tag me in your Instagram stories at Yanira Puy Wellness. I would love to listen to you. And if you want to learn how to coach with me outside of this podcast, send me an email at info@janirapuy.com. So that's what I have for you today. It was a great episode and it reminded me a lot of things. So I am going to leave you with the same thing that I leave you every single week. Remember, you've got this. So now live like the badass that you are.